AI can help you do research, can analyze the information, and help you write a great vision statement or a strategy document. But then it can go so much further if you let it. Building almost a digital twin of your environment, of your stakeholders, of your users, or your customers, or your competitors allows you to do things that you can never think about, right? And all of this is about uncovering blind spots that we have, or help us think more deeply about what we're going to do.
You are listening to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, the product marketing community that gives back. I'm your host, Louise Liu, Product Marketing Hive, and this podcast is supported by Product Marketing Edge, a technology product marketing consulting firm. In this episode, Mustafa Kapadia, Managing Director at Echo Point, shares his thoughts on Agentic AI and its impact on product management. Let's dive into it right now. Hi, Mustafa. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Louise. How are you? Thanks for having me.
I'm doing well. We're glad to have you on the show to talk about Agentic AI. It's very popular.
Yes.
Before we get started, tell us a little bit about yourself, your product management background.
Yes. So, Louise, like I said, thanks for having me on the show. I'm glad that we connected a few months ago, and that we finally have a chance to talk. So a little bit about me. So I am basically a CPO turned consultant. I have about 25 years in product management. Oh, it's been a long time, but 25 years in product management. I love this stuff. Most recently, I was global head of product and innovation at Google, where we actually built product accelerators throughout the world, where Googlers and our clients would come together to build products. Prior to that, I was with IBM, and at IBM, I had two very interesting roles. First was I was head of product, or CPO, for several other products internally, and then I ended up switching jobs, and I led the product and innovation practice as the management consulting arm of the firm. And I've been in product and innovation for a long time. I think my first job was a product manager. I didn't even know what a product manager was when I first started. And then about a year and a half ago, almost 2 years ago, I ended up leaving Google and really wanted to figure out what I wanted to be when I grow up. And so now all I do is I actually help product teams figure out how to use AI to be more effective and efficient.
That's a great story, good background. So since our topic today is Agentic AI, maybe we should start from there. Give us a little bit insights into what's your definition of Agentic AI, and tell us a little bit more about how it is different from the earlier waves of this generative AI.
Yeah. So that's a good question. I think there's a lot of misinformation about what agentic AI is, and a lot of people use it sometimes almost synonymously with large language models, right? To me, I think of agentic AI at a high level, at an umbrella, is a large language model that does something for you, right? At a very simple level. Now, there's different types of agentic AI, and I think that's probably why people get so much confused. And the way I think about it, there's 3 different levels of AI, of agents that you can use or deploy. The first level is just very simple, right? It's a very task-driven piece in which you give it some instructions, it's very tightly coupled, and it gets an output. So GPTs, if anybody's built that or used that in OpenAI, is a perfect example of what a simple agent will look like. Right. The next level of agent is that it has some autonomy in it. So, for example, it can make some decisions on their behalf. The first one is just like it just follows a script or rules. The second level is it has some type of autonomy in which it will make some decisions, key decisions on its own. So, if anybody has tried deep research that is there in either OpenAI, or Perplexity, or Gemini, or even Claude, you'll notice that you give it a task, and what it does is it actually then creates a plan for itself and then follows the plan. And at times, if the plan doesn't work, it will self-correct itself to do that, right? So to me, that's much more of an autonomous piece. The third level, but even that autonomy, by the way, is limited, right? Because it's all within a very constrained piece, like market research. The third level of agent is what I call is a super agent. That is an agent that may be an agent that controls multiple agents. It's agents that's self-aware, so it actually kicks itself off after certain conditions. We haven't seen too many of those. These are still very much in the infancy phases. In fact, it's hard for me to actually even point to any super agents out there yet. But these are self-aware. They always are monitoring the background, and based on certain triggers, it will then kick itself off. Maybe it will kick off multiple agents, control it, orchestrate it together. And I think that's where we're moving. When people say agentic, I think that's the goal, or the nirvana phase that we're looking for. Does that help?
Yeah, to help our audience understand it better, could you give us some examples of agentic AI use cases in product management context?
Yes, happy to. So let's just start with a basic one, right? So for example, as a product manager, one of the main goals you have is to write requirements, right? And so you can actually, without agents, you can use a prompt library, or you can use a script and help you write. So for example, let's make it simple, right? You want to brainstorm features. You can use a large language model, and you can actually have a specific script or a playbook, and I use a certain prompt structure, and you can put that into the chat bot, and it will give you a list of features to choose from. So to me, that is level 0, right? Then we go to the first level that we just talked about. An example is that you actually build a GPT, and a GPT is predefined instructions that will say that, okay, if I give you these types of data points, you're going to spit out a bunch of features for me, right? And so a GPT is a great example of a level 1 agent, so to speak. Now, if you go to level 2, you can go in and say, you know what, here, you can ask them, say, here are the features I'm thinking about building. Can you search my competitors? Can you search the market and see who else has these features, or are customers asking for these features, or is there something else that I should look into? And so now this is actually an agent working on your behalf to do research and come back with the questions you asked, right? You can come back and say, these features are popular, these people are not popular. Here's the feedback that's on there on the web. And that's all based on publicly developed or available information, right? Ideally, the level 3, which we actually don't have yet. I mean, we have small cases of it, but I wouldn't call it super agents yet. Ideally, what you would have is you would actually have an agent that says that, you know what, I noticed some customer feedback coming in, right? Let me now kick off the quote unquote featured brainstorming agent, and have the feature brainstorming agent spit out a bunch of features, tell that to my product manager. Product manager says, yes, I like these, and then that kicks off another agent that then writes the requirements and the user stories and so on and so forth, right? So that orchestration piece is still not available, and the kicking off the monitoring is still not available. I mean, there's small nuances of that, but not to the point at which that it's truly autonomous.
That's very fascinating. In your experience working with product managers, do you see any common misconceptions or mistakes product managers have about agentic AI?
So I think when it comes to large language models or agents, I think there's several things that hold the product managers back, right? And the first one is just what I call expectations, right? Either they expect too much, or they expect too little from large language models and agents. And so that expectation setting is very important, because otherwise, if you expect too much and you get a response back from AI, you're going to be disappointed, right? If you expect too little, most likely you're not even going to go to AI. And that's usually when we go into clients, that's the first thing we find, is that either PMs expect too much and then they get disappointed and they stop using AI, or they don't actually expect a lot of AI and so then they don't use it. And so that always holds them back. So that's number one. Number two is that there is a lot of concern that, if I'm using AI, am I cheating, right? Am I not doing my work? Or maybe is it because I'm not smart enough, or whatever the things that are holding them back. And so we actually have a client right now in which there's a few PMs in the organization feel that by using AI, they're not actually doing the work, or that they feel like if somebody learns that they're using AI, will feel like they're cheating, right? And so I think that you need to get over that. And I think part of it is twofold. Number one is management and leadership needs to come in and say, hey, it's okay to use AI. In fact, we recommend and insist that you use AI. And number two, just make it normal. Like using AI is like using a calculator. Number three is this fear, and this is probably the biggest one, is the fear that AI is going to take my jobs away. And that is a hard fear to get. And I think that also has to do, in many ways, it has to do with one and two combined. But reality is like, well, if AI can write requirements, do they really need me? If AI can write a go-to-market brief, do I really need to be part of this organization? And again, this is because I think people don't really know what AI can and cannot do. And the way we look at it is that there's a sweet spot between human and AI optimization, right? And so let's go back to the early example of brainstorming features, right? AI can be great at if you give them a set of input, like, here's the problem we have, here's the user, here's what we're trying to accomplish. If you give that input to an AI, agents or whatever that might be, they're great at coming up with a list of features to build, right? But choosing which feature to build is a human decision-making activity, right? If I give you 10 things, 10 ideas, you're not going to go in and implement all 10 ideas. You're going to choose the ones that you think are going to be the right ones and relevant ones to your company, to your context, to your product, to your organization. And so to me, AI is great at coming up with lots and lots of ideas. Humans are great at then figuring out which idea they want to pick on or which they want to tweak on, right? And to me, that human AI optimization is very important. Once PMs figure out how to use AI to give them lots and lots of ideas and options and help them overcome natural biases or see things around the corner or help them de-risk it, then they realize that it's actually not there to take their jobs away. It's actually a job enhancer, right? But in order for them to come to that realization, they have to first learn how to use AI effectively. And I think so the last point, which is really about not taking the job away, is about taking the best of AI, harnessing that power for yourself so that you can do the things that you really enjoy doing. You can do more of a super PM than ever before.
I understand this fear of AI might take my jobs away. I hear a lot of product marketers were talking about it too.
Yes. Yeah, and it's not related to just PMs, right? This fear about AI taking my job away is going to it goes across all job functions, right? And then once people start using AI, they realize that AI can be quite smart, but quite stupid at the same time. um, and when it is, and that's where the human creativity, intuition, context, all of that stuff comes in, which I don't think so AI can ever replace that.
That's good to know. So, can you tell us a little in terms of product strategy wise, how does agentic AI make the change there for product managers?
Well, we can talk about both product marketers and managers regardless, because I think AI allows, so one of the other things that AI allows you to do is it allows you to take on different roles that you have. So a product marketer can use AI to think more like a PM and vice versa, right? And you're seeing that already happening within the organizations that we service, and we have the good opportunity to do so, in which PMs, UX, engineer, marketeers are now being able to use AI to do other work. So the roles are blending, which is actually a good thing. That actually, as a marketeer, that makes you a better marketeer because now you understand the product side and vice versa, right? But coming back to your question about product strategy, let's just say that product strategy, there's a lot that AI can do from a product strategy perspective. So the first one is, we talked about earlier, is just to help you do research, right? Which I think is a fantastic idea because you can actually now have AI agents run around. And by the way, you can have agents run in every different large language model. You can have an agent run in OpenAI, Perplexity, Grok, Claude, all at the same time. And they all will come back and give you data to help inform your product strategy. So that's number one, right? Number two is that once you have a product strategy, you can actually take all of that information and have AI synthesize that into a narrative, right? And you can be directional about the narrative too. You can say that here, based on this, I think this is the direction we want to go to. And the AI will then come up with an entire storyboard for your presentation and say that here's the 4 or 5 things that you need to do, here are the headlines, and so on and so forth. Like I said, it'll help you write your presentation. It will not write it for you because it goes back to the same thing that we just talked about. It will give you a lot of options saying maybe you should do this, maybe you should do that, but ultimately you are the decider. What I think is an even more fascinating use case, which I think very few people are just touching on, and this is where our clients love it, is that now you can take that presentation and then you can build a synthetic stakeholder in your organization and say, I'm about to go present to the CFO. I'm about to go present to the CMO. I'm about to go present to the CPO. Here's the deck I have. How would they respond to this? Like, what are the blind spots that I'm missing? What are the questions that they will ask me, right? And so if you build a synthetic stakeholder, which is quite easy to build, and you can actually use AI to spar with it, you can even actually take it further. You can actually take your product strategy, and now you can build a synthetic competitor. So you can simulate your competitors, and you can play war games, and you can predict that if we do this strategy, how will they react? And based on the reaction, how are we going to react? So now you can think about second order thinking. These are new capabilities that we as PMs or marketeers never had, right? I'm gonna go a little bit further. If you're a marketeer, you can actually build synthetic users and have synthetic users give you feedback on your marketing program or your go-to-market or whatever draft that you're creating, right? These are all new capabilities that we've never had before.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example. I'm actually particularly interested in the extreme use cases where the AI agent comes in as one of the users of our product. What does this mean when it comes to designing our product, prototyping our product? What does it mean? Like,
yes, I do think that makes the life of a SaaS company much harder, right? Instead of users using their product, bots are using the product, right? And so how does that change the design of the product itself? And I think it does make a huge difference. There is, most, in fact, 99% of the product, I would even go back and say 100% of the product out there are designed for human interface. That has just been the norm for as long as products and digital products have been around or software has been around. We are under a new paradigm in which we are now moving away from human interface to basically bot interface. Now we do have some, of that are happening in some cases. Like, so for example, APIs are exactly what that is machines talking to machines, right? If you ever get to the point in which bots are the ones who are interacting with these large databases like CRM or whatever, or SAP or whatever it is, because at the end of the day, it's just a really big database, right? With information stored in a certain way. If you ever get to the point in which that the predominant user changes from human to bots, you have to now design it differently, right? Because the way an AI ingest information as of right now is very different than the way the human ingests information. And so the interface might have to change. You might actually have to build 2 different interfaces, one for human, one for bots, just so that it's much more efficient for the bots to pull information out. And if that's where the industry is going, and if that's what the users are asking for, I think SaaS companies will have to change the way they do it. That's a great question.
yeah, it's very fascinating. I'm looking forward to see where it's going. So, back to our topic, do you think for product managers to adapt into this new AI, agentic AI augmented world, are there any new skills or new frameworks that they need to adopt to work effectively?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think you have to. So that's number one. Do you mind if I step back? Let's talk about the larger picture, right? So regardless of the profession that you're in, AI is going to change the way you work, period. I just look at the way I work now, and even the way I used to work 2 years ago when I was Google is completely different. Regardless of where you are in what job you're doing, AI is going to fundamentally change everything that you do. And I know it sounds ridiculous that, like, Mustafa, is it really everything? I'm like, listen, it will be everything. And so if you're a product manager, you actually literally have kind of 2 choices. Number one, you can lean in, or number 2, you can lean back. If you lean in, that means that you can actually, you're taking the benefit of you going with the tide, right? you are now putting yourself, especially at this moment in time, at a different level than all your peers. And so if you lean in and say that, you know what, I'm just going to make an AI first in everything that I do. Every task I start, I'm going to start with an AI first. You're just setting yourself up for success. And I've seen that happen over and over again. And I know it sounds cliche, but in the last year and a half, 2 years, of all the PMs that we've helped, a lot of them have been promoted because they're an AI first PM, right? That's just the reality, because companies are demanding that their workforce become AI first. So why wouldn't you lean in? And not only are they using AI first to become better product managers, now that they have a deeper understanding of AI, they can actually now build better AI products. So now you have a double benefit as a product manager. Number one, it makes you more effective and productive. Number two, it helps you build better products. So that's the choice. You can lean back and you can wait for the tide to come in and then take you, but then you're struggling all the way through. And I think that window is very small. What I tell my clients and I tell my team is that, now is the time to lean in, because if you do it now, it's a competitive advantage. If you wait for a year from now, maybe it's still a competitive advantage, but most people are going to start working this way. If you wait 2 years from now, you're falling behind, right? So there's a short amount of time. So with that being said, let's come back to the question you asked. So what are the new skills? So if you're the PM who says, I want to lean in, I want to be AI first, what does that mean, right? To me, there's some fundamental skills I think that PMs need to work on. Number one is they just need to know how to ask questions to AI to get much better and more detailed answers. And that's just another way of saying you need to be better at prompt engineering. To me, the way you ask questions is fundamentally determines the quality of response you get. And if you know how to ask questions well, you can get great responses in a short amount of time. A lot of people get frustrated because they ask a question, but then the AI doesn't get it. And they go back and forth, they go sparring with AI, and then you get into this little black hole. I'm like, that's not what I went. And then you get frustrated, you shut it down. That's because the fundamental skill is how you ask questions. This is the only way we interact with AI is through questions. And so you need to learn how to ask questions. We have a framework, I call it the 5 keys. Consistently over time, it always gives you high quality results. So to me, ask questions, prompt engineering is very important. Second part I think is quite important is that you really have to figure out what I called earlier is this human AI optimization. To understand what AI does well and what humans does well, and to be okay with leaning in and using AI to do what it does well, not being ashamed of it, not being afraid of it, not being scared of it, and just saying that, okay, this is what AI does. These are the things that I still do. You still control the higher order task. You're still in the driver's seat. You're still in control. You're just using AI almost, in my opinion, the analogy I use is like an intern, right? We have no problems going and asking an intern to go do research or write some requirements and so on and so forth. We should use the same thing with AI. So human AI optimization is the second one. Third one I think is very important is that it's really important for PMs to learn the different nuances between the different large languages. So not all language models are created equal, right? Even if you take the top 3, Gemini, OpenAI, and Claude, they're still built differently. And so knowing what task to put in what large language model is just as important. Claude is very good at analysis. Claude is very good at writing code. OpenAI is very good at brainstorming and context. Gemini is very good at imaging images and trying to figure out generation and so on and so forth. And so knowing where to use each one of these is just as important. It's just like a toolkit that you have. So to me, that's third one. Fourth one is that you have to come up with what I call the new way of working or best practices or standard approach, whatever you want to call it. And that's, you mentioned the framework, right? That's what I mean. Like you should have a way or an approach of how you deal with AI every time. I have a step-by-step process about how I deal with AI. Every time I start a task, I start with this, then I do this, then I use this to evaluate responses. Here I get better. I add it to my playbook. So that approach makes very sense, and everybody has a different approach. We have a highly recommended approach, but people should come up with an approach. What happens most times, unfortunately, is that people just have an ad hoc approach to AI, right? They use it like Google search, which, by the way, is the worst analogy. You can't use it as Google search. So having a standard approach is very important. And then last but not the least, and this has nothing to do with large language models or AI, is that you have to be able to communicate the benefits of using AI to others. For example, if AI has made your job easier, if AI has saved you time, if AI has produced better quality, you should be able to articulate that. That is more about how you communicate with your team and your leadership and everybody else around you as to how you are AI first. That's the signal that you want to get as a product manager or anybody else so that you can stand out and that you can get promoted. or you can't get to the next job, or whatever that might be. So to me, the first four are really about how to use AI effectively. The last one is how you communicate the fact that you're using AI effectively. And that is just as important.
I agree. This is very inspiring. So, briefly, you mentioned the 5T models you have for working effectively with agentic AI. Can you touch upon it?
Yeah, to give you just a little bit of history, right? When I first started AI, I did all the same mistakes like everybody else makes. You know, the first mental model I had is I treated like Google search. And I'm like, this is horrible. The answers are really bad. And by the way, this probably around November 2022 when ChatGPT 3 had just come out. And so I was experimenting with it. And so I'm like, there's got to be a better way to get the most out of this model. And so we tried different things. And what I found out consistently over time is that if you give AI 5 key attributes the way you ask questions, you always are going to get better results. So the first one is you have to assign AI a role. So let's go back to the feature brainstorming task that we talked about. So if I'm asking AI to come up with great features that I want to have for my product, my first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say assign it a role and say, you know what, you are one of the world's best product managers. You know, you excel at brainstorming features. Just like when you hire somebody, you want to hire the best person. So you hire AI to be the best person at that task. The second thing you do is you provide it with input or context. And I say, okay, now I've hired the right person. I'm going to tell you what is the problem I'm trying to solve? Who's the user? What is the outcome that I want to get? How is the user going to benefit? And so 4 or 5, what I call first principle product ideas, goes in the input. And that first principles is very important because you want to give AI enough information for it to hold on to it and do something about it, right? If you try to be directional or if you try to kind of just give it partial information, that doesn't work. And product is all about first principles. In fact, the best PMs work from first principles out. So the second is input. And input, I say, think about first principles. Third is you have to tell AI the instructions. And that is, what do you do with this information? So now you have given it an assignment, you've given it an input, and now you're telling them, by the way, write these features based on these best practices. So already you have now primed the model to give you great responses, right? The next two is really about what I call reinforcing that idea, right? So the next two is the requested format and examples. The requested format is every company has a different format of writing features, right? So I want AI to give me in the format that makes most sense for my organization. So at Google, the way we wrote features is we had a feature description and a benefit statement, right? At IBM, we had different epics or whatever framework it is. And so in your format section, you tell them that please respond in this format. You want bullets, tell it bullets. You want tables, tell it tables. You want it to tell it in feature benefit format, you can do that, right? And then last but not the least is then you put an example out there and say, here's what a good example looks like. And so what you're doing is constantly reinforcing AI on how to respond to you, right? Oh, so this is what I say, how you ask questions is very important. If you take the 5 features, which is assign a role, provide it with first principle inputs, give it just the right instructions or best practice of what to do with that input, provide it with the format that you want the information relayed back to you on, and then reinforce everything with a good example. And if you do that, you should be able to get great responses.
That's good. Thank you for sharing. From your perspective, how do you expect product marketers to change in order to work better with you? What does this AI first product marketer look like?
So I think that's a great question. And we kind of touched on this too, right? I think the roles are blending. So let's just talk about how first product marketers can use AI. Let's start with that, and then we can talk about how they can work effectively with product managers. And I'll give you some examples, right? So number one, I think product marketers can use AI just like product managers to write a lot of the marketing material that you guys create, right? And if you do it well, I think it can save you a lot of time, and it can be actually great material. Number two is you can use some of these new capabilities. You can use the research capabilities of agents. You can use the capabilities of synthetic users to actually evaluate your product marketing material, right? And why stop at just synthetic users? You can actually build a synthetic product manager that you're working with. And you can say that here's the marketing, or here's the go-to-market that I'm thinking about doing. How would my friend Bob, who's a product manager, react to this? What would Bob like? What would Bob not like? Right? So as a product marketer, you can already start building these other personas to get better and more aligned with it. So I think that's number one, right? And so just using AI to its full extent, I think is very important. Coming to your other point about how can the two roles work together, I think that is very much about, I think the two roles can actually enhance each other, in my opinion, right? So product marketers are great because they can think about all the different problems that the customer has and figure out what are the features that we need to build. Where they don't spend that much time is like, once I build the feature, how the heck am I going to sell it? Right? How am I going to market it? Right? And so if you actually get a product manager and a product marketer and bring them together and start thinking about it in the same way, because the product manager has a deep understanding of the customer and the problem. The product marketer has a deep understanding of the customer and how to market to them. If you bring those together, and if AI can make that easier, you can do a lot. And by the way, you see that already happening with some of my clients. In fact, some of them, it's happening more and more between product managers and UX, product managers and engineering. And there's a lot of them now talking to marketing as well to figure out how can we actually do this together. And so the squad model, which is very familiar in most organizations, to me, a marketing SME is a key individual in that squad as well.
Do you have any final thoughts?
So first of all, thank you for having me. This has been great. I think these questions are fantastic. It really, I enjoyed the conversation a lot. If there was anything that I would say is that number one is, don't wait. Start using AI now, right? Doesn't matter how you use AI, just start using it. And if you are particularly interested in using AI for product management, come check out our newsletter. It's at echo-point.com. But my request to you is just don't wait, right? AI is not going to take your job away. It's going to fundamentally change the way you work. And so you want to lean in. You don't want to be that person leaning back, right? Because in 2 years from now, the way we work is going to be vastly different.
Thank you for sharing today. Thank you for joining us, Mustafa.
No worries. Thanks for having me, Louise.
Thank you for tuning in to This is Product Marketing, brought to you by Product Marketing Hive, a product marketing community that gives back. Check out our website, productmarketinghive.com, to join our community, meet fellow product marketers, and access free resources. If you enjoyed our podcast, please subscribe and give a 5-star rating on the platform of your choice. See you next time.